Building an A-plus team when starting out in multifamily real estate. Hey everyone, welcome to this week's video. Today we're talking about building a team around you, especially when you're starting out in multifamily real estate. Maybe you've got a few properties under your belt already, but it's obviously an important thing when getting into the industry is having the right pieces around you because they're only going to help you succeed and get on the right trajectory, especially when you're starting out. So I'm going to go through a list here of the most important pieces. I'm going to rank them and we're going to talk about why they're so important when starting out. And I always like to say, I heard this once when I was starting out, was A players work with other A players. B players play with B and C players. So if you meet someone who is an A player, you want to see how you can provide value to them first and foremost, and then they will bring other A players into your orbit, and that's going to start you off on the right foot. So it can be any kind of team piece out there. Could be an attorney, could be a broker, lender, and if you identify them as an A player, you got to figure out who are they working with. So that's a huge tip that someone told me when I was starting out, and that's something you should definitely keep in mind. So I'm going to go through the list here of the most important team pieces when you're starting out. And keep in mind, this isn't necessarily the most important overall, but definitely when you're starting out, this is going to be the most important piece. And the first one is a specialist multifamily agent ×2. So yeah, a lot of people might think, hey, I need a good attorney, I need good lenders, capital partners, whatever it is. You can't get to that point unless you actually have a deal. And unless you're going to try and find deals off market yourself, you're going to need a good multifamily agent. And actually, two of them is what I recommend people start out with. So the two different types. First of all, they got to be specialists in multifamily. That doesn't mean that they can't do other asset types, other commercial types. Maybe they do a residential here and there, but their primary focus has to be multifamily. You don't want to be working with, a realtor who's doing single family homes and condos and occasionally gets like a twoplex and a fourplex. You need someone who really understands the multifamily market and the asset types in multifamily. So when I say two, you're going to need two types. Remember, you're starting out or you're pretty new to the game. The top level multifamily agents aren't going to necessarily be spending a ton of time with you. They're going to be spending it with their own A players, the guys who are proven, who are investing in a lot of real estate and in big dollar amounts. Working with a newer investor always carries some risk that they're going to be spinning their tires. It's going to be a lot more headaches than it's worth. You can demonstrate the opposite of that when you're working with these agents, and we'll talk about that in another video. But first, the first agent you kind of want is that experienced agent, but you can't expect that you're going to get a ton of their time and attention. You might get a call every so often. But what you want to, how you find these kinds of agents is you simply look at the deals out there on the market and see who is listing them. Usually you'll start to see 2 or 3, maybe 4 names out there in the market type that you're looking for. And you're going to contact this agent because usually it's the 80-20 rule. It's 20% of the agents out there will be doing 80% of the work. So you want to find the guy who seems to be getting through these owners, who seems to be getting deals listed. And what you'll find is that a lot of these deals, they have the deals that are on market, but they also have deals that are off market where maybe they couldn't get the listing for. Maybe the owner just said, hey, if you find me a buyer, I'll transact with you. So contacting these top level agents is a must, but you have to set expectations, especially if you're starting out, you don't have a property. These guys aren't going to spend a ton of time with you. They're definitely not going to give you the absolute best deals that they have off market. They're usually going to be reserved for their top clients who they've worked with in the past. Now, if you now what you need is the other side of that, which is usually a younger, more inexperienced broker. I hesitate saying that word, but typically they are younger and more inexperienced, but they're hungry. They're getting into the industry, or they've been in it for a few years. And these are the kinds of agents who are going to work with you. They're going to hustle for you. They're going to leave no stone unturned, finding a deal for you. And this is the kind of agent that you're typically going to be on the phone with, hopefully, multiple times a week. They're going to be telling you what they see out there, and they're going to be shooting you deals as soon as there's any level of interest that there could be a potential deal going on the market. So those are the two kind of agents I recommend working with. Again, you're not listing, so you're not exclusive with any of these, but you also don't want to be hitting up every single agent and trying to get their business. It's better to focus on two solid ones. One very experienced one who's doing most of the deals, and then a young, hungry hustler who's going to be doing a lot of grunt work for you, and hopefully you can grow together as you buy deals. They're going to be doing deals, and it can be a long, fruitful relationship. So that's the most important part, because without deals, nothing else really matters. You can have the best other team pieces on that there are on the planet, but it's not going to help you if you don't have the deal. So multifamily agents, easy number one when you're starting out. Number two, community bank lender and a mortgage broker. I like these combinations. You're going to get financing on your properties. A mortgage broker and a community bank lender, they work pretty well together. It depends on what kinds of deals you're looking at. I always try and seek out who is a community bank lender who's going to be number one. They're pretty competitive. They want to do commercial real estate, and they're also hungry in the market. So typically, you don't want to be working with community bank lenders who are not hungry to also want to do business. And you can tell that pretty easily if you reach out to a bank and they're not too receptive, or it takes a while to get hold of someone. They're a little wishy-washy with telling you about their product and the deals they've done in the past. Then that might not be the right way to go. But usually in every market, there's a community bank lender who's going to be hungry to do business. Maybe they've been told from their higher ups that go out there and get deals, and you need to identify these community bank lenders. You can create a relationship with them by doing multiple deals, and that's going to serve you really well going into the future. The other part is a mortgage broker. So what a mortgage broker will do, they'll shop your deal out once you get one under contract to multiple different lenders across the country. Now, it's hard to form a relationship like you can with a community bank lender, with a mortgage broker, but what you can be assured of is that you're going to get the absolute best terms and rates. And if you have something funky going on with your deal, or your personal situation trying to purchase the deal, then they're going to be able to steer you into the right direction and put the best face forward. So they're two very different types of lenders, and they both have their place. And depending on your deal, if you're doing rehab up front, looking to stabilize it and then get into a more long-term financing, you might be better off with a mortgage broker. But if you're just trying to work a local deal, especially a smaller deal, a community bank lender may be the right fit. But you really need to get both of these pieces in place. And then once you get a deal, you can figure out which is going to make more sense. So financing is a huge part. If you can get interest rates that are current and likely, then it helps you do your underwriting as well and make sure that you get into the deal at the right level. You don't find a good deal, get it on the contract, and then realize that your interest rate is going to be off by a lot, which is going to adversely affect your deal. Third one, we have general contractor, inspector. You could also put property manager here. Really, someone who is very oriented to construction, understands the local construction. They can go check out the property and give you advice really on what to look out for, where the traps are hidden. I'm assuming that you're not coming from a heavy construction background where you can just walk into a property, understand where the risks are, whether it be the plumbing, electrical, the roof. This is very important on the front end when you're looking at deals, and you can actually learn a lot just walking through with these types of trades, especially a general contractor. They can see where the big cost outlay is going to be. They might even be able to give you some estimates just glancing at a property. So get someone like that on your side that is trustworthy, and it's going to help you feel confident in getting into a deal and not feeling that hey, there could be a bogey around the corner that's going to upend the numbers of your deal. The last one I have here is a corporate attorney who's also a real estate specialist. So not to be confused with a transaction attorney. Transaction attorney will typically work on a deal by deal basis. So when you get a new deal, they might help you with a contract. If you're using a templated contract, they might review the contract and actually make changes where needed, and they carry the deal through to closing. A corporate attorney is someone who's going to be putting bylaws together for you. If you have a partnership agreement, if you're doing a syndication, there's all these agreements that need to be put in place, and they really need to be airtight. You can't have something that is loose or is contradictory. A lot of people try and skimp out on this, and it's the most costly thing in the future. If there is a disagreement and it can't be resolved, then it can end in litigation, and that can cost 10, sometimes maybe even 100 times more than what it would cost if you put a good corporate attorney in place at the start, and they can make sure that there isn't any room for interpretation. Everything is kind of black and white spelled out. So as you expand and you're hopefully looking to do more and more deals in the future, you are going to be partnering with people. You are going to be doing syndications where you bring on capital partners, even just the LLC formation to purchase a property, which is very highly recommended. They're going to be able to put these things in place for you. And I've got some honorable mentions, some parts and pieces that are maybe less important. And remember, I'm talking about when you're starting out in real estate, multifamily investing. Maybe you got a few deals under your belt. Definitely some of these are probably more important in the overall scheme of things. And if you've done 100 deals, and transaction attorney is a good example of that. Having a good transaction attorney is so important in the long run and after doing many, many deals. If you do a single deal and you have an average or even below average transaction attorney, chances are it's going to be okay. But over the course of 20, 50, 100 deals, using a average transaction attorney, you're likely going to come up with this outlier edge case that completely ruins a deal and may even cause you some financial strife if it's not handled properly. So transaction attorney is very important, but for a single first one-off deal, that's why it didn't make the list. Very important that you don't want to conflate the different types of attorneys. So transaction attorney, corporate attorney, a lot of attorneys out there will try and do multiple things, and typically those that try and do both are pretty average at both at best. You want someone who's a specialist. In fact, a good sign for looking for these kinds of attorneys is if they turn down business. So I know a transaction attorney who I asked about the corporate stuff, and they actually said, no, we don't actually do any of those corporate documents. I can recommend you to a very good one that I know of, but we steer away from that. That's not our core competency, and I really appreciate that. And that kind of showed me that transaction attorney is, that they only stay in their lane and do transactions. So good tip for you there. Insurance broker, as insurance is getting very expensive nowadays. So if you can get someone who can give you ranges, especially at the front end when you're doing underwriting, very important. And of course, writing a policy that will back that up. An accountant, having good especially someone who's very well versed in tax accounting for real estate, very important. And especially if you bring on investors, you want to be able to pass those tax advantages down. And then the last one we have here is property manager. As I said before, these are for when you're starting out and you're getting a few deals up under your sleeve. A property manager is going to be really vital in the long term success. In the short term, especially as you're buying your first deal, you're probably going to be very involved in the day to day process of managing the building, even if you do have a property manager in place or you're managing yourself. So that's why it only gets an honorable mention. But all of these parts, as I said at the top of the video, if you meet one of them that seems like an A player, try and get other contacts from them because A players typically work with other A players. So that's all we have time for today. Thanks for following along, and we'll see you next time.